This is about some of the content I've added to the enemies, along with some of the improvements I've made. To start with, something I mentioned on the previous post, I also made a model for the enemy. In this case, it was a goblin design I thought of in the pre-production stage. As you can see, it pretty much is the main character model with the ears on it. This was so I could easily copy the animations to save time, but also have a slightly different looking model. In the future, I would like to make them slightly smaller and the animations play a little faster, but from my experience, messing around with scale while animating is not a good idea. Next, I made a range type enemy. In this case it was an archer, as I could use some of the same assets I made from the main character with some slight edits. The blueprint has some of the main character and melee enemy, so let's go through that now. First, for the things that are the exact same, or only very slightly different. The HP system, except now it also destroys the bow. The health bar above the enemy. The start of the AI move 2, and finally spawning the bow to the enemy, though in this case it happens the second the enemy is spawned. Now for what's been added, or majorly changed. In the AI move 2, I changed the acceptance radius to 700, so instead of running till it basically overlaps with the character, it will now stop around 700 units away, 700 centimeters. This is because as an archer I don't want them running up to the player's face, I want them to stay slightly back, keeping some range between them. Also, before I get into the next bit, while the enemy can see the player, it will always fire them. One problem caused by them stopping at range is that if the player is in that range, they won't move at all, not even to face the player. This causes a problem as they won't shoot towards a player, basically making them useless. To see if they have reached the player, on success, they have, on fail, they haven't. I then went to this event tick setup, so that when they reach the player, it will look at them. But I only want this to run when they reach the player, which is where the boolean from before comes in, as you can see. The way it works is it gets the location of the player and itself, and then finds the rotation needed to look at the player. I only have it set up the Z-axis so because I don't want the enemy looking upwards if the player jumped, as it would make the model look like it was floating. I then set that as its rotation. I would also like to mention the isValid nodes. I technically don't need them, as it's just making sure the variables exist, but they are helpful for debugging and make sure there are no errors when I am playing. This is all I've really done, aside from this material and the golem. The golem will be covered in a future blog post and is still extremely experimental, so I'll see you in the next video.